Hi students, and welcome to part 2 of cardboard loom weaving with Ms. Boley. Last time we learned how to set up our loom and how to start weaving. So now we're going to learn how to change out to a different color of yarn or to a different material. Alright, so I've gotten to the end of my red yarn here, so I'm going to remove it from my popsicle stick. And I'm going to take the next color that I want to use, and I'm going to tie the two of them together by doing an overhand knot. Oh, hi kitty! He wanted to see what we were doing. Hey buddy. Aww, that's Vince. Alright, you gotta go, buddy. Okay, so I'm going to tie the two of them together, and then I'm going to cut that long tail off so that I just have a nice knot. And then I'm going to attach the other end of my piece of yarn. I'm gonna make a longish piece again, cut it, and I'm gonna attach that other cut end to my popsicle stick if I'm using one, or my piece of cardboard if I'm using it, or if I'm not using it, then you don't need to worry about that part. So I will attach it. Oh, that type of yarn is a little too, it's kind of thick. It's hard to put through there. There we go. See, as you can see. And then I'm just going to continue on with weaving. And because I've tied the two pieces of yarn together, I won't have any interruption in my weaving at all. So I'm just going to keep going. So the process is a little different if I'm switching to something else that isn't yarn, but I will show that later. All right, so I've reached the end of my orange yarn there. So I want to switch to something else that's not yarn. It's going to be a plastic bag. So what I'm going to do, this is another way you can switch to a different color. I'm going to tie my weft thread around my warp thread. So I'm doing a little loop as I showed in video number 1 with a long tail, and then I'm going to pull the little tail through the loop, and I'm going to pull tight. There we go. And now I have this kind of long thread coming out the side. I can leave that. It looks kind of cool. Or I can cut it or tuck it in the back of my weaving, whatever you decide. We all always get to make creative decisions as we are creating our work. So when we decide what new color to use, or when we decide if we want to leave something a certain way. So now I'm pushing up my weft threads as well, so that they can be kind of tight and close together. All right, so I'm going to decide on a new material to use. So I'm going to use either a pipe cleaner or a plastic bag. So I've cut a plastic bag into strips, and I'm going to use that. So I'm going to tie that by doing an overhand knot, doing a little loop and pulling the tail through. And then I'm just going to weave this plastic bag through my weaving project. This is too big to go onto my shuttle, my popsicle stick shuttle. So I'm just going to pull it through by using my fingers instead. Some people find it easier to not use the popsicle stick, especially for larger materials like this, but just in general sometimes. So now I can like smush the plastic bag together more and see what that looks like, or I can pull it farther apart and see what that looks like. I'm just going to continue on with weaving with my plastic bag. So I've decided I'm going to wrap my pipe cleaners around my plastic bag and see what that is like. So I'm going to give that a go. When you're weaving with a material that isn't either strips of fabric or yarn, like it's not flexible, like pipe cleaners are kind of harder to bend than a piece of yarn, obviously. It's a little trickier, but just try different things out and see what you like and what you don't. If you try something and you're like, oh, I did not like that, you can always remove it from your weaving or just not choose to use that material again. All right, now I've finished with the plastic bag. I've tied it off, or I'm going to tie it off here, just to make sure that it doesn't come undone from my project. You can just choose to either tie the pieces off or just leave long pieces hanging off the sides. That works as well. All right, this one was something different. I don't know how I felt about it, but I decided to try using a stick to weave with. So it's a very inflexible material. It's not fabric. But I just wanted to see what it would be like. So, I mean, try things out. You can even try using strips of paper or strips of fabric. And if you decide, so at this point I was like, oh, I like that, but I feel like it needs another stick. You can kind of move the weaving that you've already done, the weft that you've already done. You can move it down and you can add something different in between. This is what I'm doing here. So just because you've already started an area doesn't mean you need to keep it how it is. You can always change and modify things as you go. Alright, so here I'm using a really chunky piece of yarn. So if you use a thicker piece of yarn, you won't have to do as much over and under weaving to fill up your project. It sort of takes up more space than the thinner yarns. So try out different thicknesses of yarn as well and see what you think of them. All right, now here's a time lapse of the very last color of my weaving. I decided to go with the red again, just so that it kind of gave it a little bit of symmetry. All right, so I'm pushing up my weft. I'm pushing up my weaving pretty tightly so I can then remove it from the cardboard when I am all done. All right, that's it. Thank you for watching. I cannot wait to see your finished pieces. And don't forget to watch part 3, how to take your weaving off of the cardboard.